These are the questions and answers from the Unit 1 Assessment Part 1 for Math Analysis Period 5. The first question was all about changing degrees into radians. So the thing you have to remember is that 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're trying to figure out how many radians is negative 315 degrees, since these two are equal, you can divide both things by the same, right? You can divide 315 degrees by 180 degrees and divide whatever number the radians is by pi radians. You're dividing both sides by an equal amount. So that doesn't mess up your equation. You wind up saying negative 7 over 4 is equal to some number of radians over pi radians. Cross multiply, and you get negative 7 pi over 4 radians. Okay. So that's a way to do it where all you have to do is remember that 180 degrees is pi radians. It is a little bit easier the next time around. We remember that 180 degrees is pi radians. Divide that by 3, and it says that 60 degrees is pi over 3 radians. And what we're really looking for here is, right, what's 120 degrees? And that's 2 pi over 3 radians. So again, there are formulas you can use, or you can sort of work things out just using what you remember. Secant of 150 degrees, that is the reciprocal function of the cosine. So it's 1 over cosine of 150 degrees. The cosine of 150 degrees is negative square root of 3 over 2. If you flip that over, you get negative 2 over square root of 3. And if you rationalize the denominator here, you get negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. And that is the answer to that. Number 4 is asking, what is the cotangent of 0 degrees? Okay. Now, this one's a little bit trickier. You got to remember that cotangent is actually x over y, the x coordinate over the y coordinate. And if you think about 0 degrees, 0 degrees is this right here, and the x coordinate is 1, the y coordinate is 0. If you put x over y, you wind up with 1 over 0, and that's undefined. So the answer to number 4, cotangent of 0 degrees, is undefined. Going back up here, the question is, what is the sine of 30 degrees plus the cosine of 60 degrees? And again, in order to do that, you're going to have to know that the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2, and if you add them together, they're equal to 1. Next question, cosine squared of pi plus sine squared of pi. Now, we're going to learn later, and actually pretty soon, that anytime you have the cosine of something squared and you add it to the sine of the same thing squared, that's always going to equal 1. And we'll look at it in a little bit, and I'll show you why. But for the moment, even if you didn't know that yet, you could just say, well, the cosine of pi is -1, and the sine of pi is 0. That you should know. Square that, you got 1 plus 0, and that's 1. Okay. A couple of you asked me whether it would matter which one you put where, and the answer is no, it shouldn't. I will go through and make sure that nobody got marked off for that, but the computer should recognize that the two ones are the same thing, so whichever one you put in which place, it should be fine. Well, again, number 7, we're going to be switching degrees into radians or vice versa, so we're starting with that. And the question was 5 pi over 6 radians, so that's pretty straightforward. We're just going to multiply both sides by 5/6, and we wind up saying 5 times 30, right, because the 6 divides into 180. That's 150 degrees is 5 pi over 6 radians. For number 8, we're going to do it one more time. Pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. We want to know pi over 12 radians, so we just have to divide both sides by 12. 180 divided by 12 is 15. So pi over 12 radians is 15 degrees. So those were the first 8 questions. Those were the matching questions. The next one was this. So you're told that you have an angle that's in standard position, and the terminal side goes through the point 4 comma negative 3. So that means you're dealing with this angle here, and you're told that the sine of theta is what you want to find, and we know that that's the y value over the r value. Well, we already know the y value is negative 3. So the question is, what's the r value? That's this length right here. Okay. And the way we get that is by drawing a right triangle. Here's a right triangle right here. This distance from here to here is 3. This distance from here to here is 4. You should actually recognize this as a Pythagorean triple. This is going to be 5, but even if you didn't recognize that, that's okay. 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to r squared, right? And that's true even if you thought of this as negative 3. Wouldn't make any difference here. So this would be 9 plus 16 is equal to r squared. And this is 25 is equal to r squared. And since we're dealing with a length here and not a displacement, this is going to have to be a positive value. So r is equal to 5. And that means the sine is negative 3 over 5. Some of you were asking me why I wasn't just letting everybody see the results of the quiz before I'd had a chance to look at them. And I told the people who asked that I want to go through it first and make sure that everything was right before I gave it back to you. This will give you an idea of why. This was the last question, but the way the question was worded, you have an angle in standard position. The terminal side runs through quadrant 4, which is this here. And it said that the tangent of the angle, which would be this right here, is 12 over 5. Well, that's just not possible. Tangent is slope, and slope is tangent. And that's really important to remember. Tangent is slope. And so if we look at this line right here, that starts here, continues down here, the slope of that line is negative. It can't be positive. If the terminal side is going through the 4th quadrant, the slope cannot be positive. So take your pick. This question could have either been okay if I'd said that the tangent was equal to negative 12 over 5, or if I'd said it was actually going through quadrant 3. What the problem was supposed to say was that it was going through quadrant 3. Okay. That would make this the angle here. That would be a positive slope, so it would be perfectly reasonable to say that the tangent of theta was equal to 12 over 5. And by the way, that would mean the y value over the x value. So x would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Negative 5 here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 here, so let's put it over here. That would be negative 12. The point is that if this is your angle here, and this is theta, and your tangent is 12 over 5, it's because this distance here is negative, or this displacement is negative. This displacement is negative. So if I do rise over run, it's still going to be positive 12 over 5. Now the question is, what's this here? Well, for those of you who don't recognize it, it's another Pythagorean triple. This has to be 13. That's because 5 squared plus 12 squared is equal to 25 plus 144, which is equal to 169. If I take the square root of all of that, that's 13. The radius has to be positive, so this is 13. So the sine of theta is going to be y over r. We know that r is 13, and we know that the y value over here is negative 12. So the answer to this was supposed to be negative 12 over 13. And of course, whether you got it right or not, everyone will get credit for that last question. And that's why I wanted to go through and make sure I fixed it.